everyone. Welcome back to the Israel Connection podcast. I hope you all had a wonderful spring break, whether you celebrate Passover or Easter. Hope everything was wonderful. I have a very special guest today. She's coming straight from Australia. She's an Australian TV and radio presenter, best known as a former host of the primetime show Erin on Sky News. She's a passionate advocate for Israel and human rights, and she has gained recognition for her articulate and principled stance on various social and political issues, particularly the Gaza conflict. Erin Molan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure and a privilege to join you. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. So Erin, you had this incredible monologue that you had on Sky News, which went viral. And you know, everybody were on the train for this monologue. I watched it several times. It was incredible, I must say. It was really good. And you spoke on the monologue about Israel, Hamas, and you really made waves with it. How did that moment shift things for you in terms of speaking about Israel, or like personally, professionally?
It was crazy, to be honest, and more so. Look, I like to think that I'm clever in how I use words. It's my trade, it's my passion. But what I was really saying was very obvious, very basic, and just factual. So the fact that it resonated so deeply and that it was considered special was bizarre to me. But I guess reflective of the bigger issue that we have, and that has been more pronounced since October 7. I mean, if you told me 18 months ago that Hamas would launch this horrific terror attack against Israel, that I would come out very strongly against that terrorism and very strongly in support of the victims of that terrorism, and you said to me, and that, Erin, is going to be controversial and you will be in the minority, I would have said, you are dreaming. There is no chance. I know that some of the world are crazy, but the vast majority, no way. Yet here we are. You know, it's crazy. I was so naive to this, whatever it is that causes people to act this way, this anti-Semitism, this just unexplainable hate of Israel and the Jewish people. I was completely naive that so much of it still existed. But it changed my life in a lot of ways, in some very difficult ways, absolutely, but in far more incredible ways, in that I care so deeply about this issue, and the fact that my voice is resonating means a great deal to me, and it's only encouraged me to speak louder and to speak more.
I think, to me, like as an Israeli, as a Jewish person, to see you speak about it, especially coming from Australia, because we, you know, in the past, especially in the past 2 years, we've seen a huge rise in anti-Semitism in Australia, anti-Semitic attacks in Australia, and to hear something like that coming from an Australian news anchor from Sky News, that was incredible to me. That was really surprising. And I mean, I think it's a little sad that we're used to like getting just a little bit at a time, you know, and it's crazy that it's just a little bit of time, but it was incredible to see it. And you had so much conviction, and the way you spoke directly to the camera, to the people at home, that was incredible to me. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I think, you know, that I'm not conventional in how I host TV shows and in how I express myself, but I'm very real and I'm very genuine, and I'm incapable of delivering things that I don't believe. And I think that I hope that's very obvious to people, that when I do things, the reason I think it makes such an impact is because it is so genuine and so real, and I feel it very deeply. So I appreciate that, although I am deeply uncomfortable with needing to be thanked for telling the truth. But I understand that it's few and far between when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people. So I also understand why, and I'm grateful for it, but it's crazy.
Yeah. So did you ever speak about Israel publicly before October 7, or was that the first time?
Look, it was probably really the first time in terms of public commentary. I mean, I've been obsessed with foreign affairs and national security and world events for many, many years, but my professional life prior to hosting that show on Sky, and I'd only done that for kind of 3 years, was as a sports host. So I started out as a rugby league, tennis. I would host so many sports on Channel 9 in Australia. I was the first woman to host a lot of different sporting events in Australia. So that was my field professionally. So look, I would definitely not go into issues of, the Middle East and war in Europe during a football broadcast. But so once I started in this space that had always been my passion, which is politics, national security, foreign affairs, I was then able to talk very publicly about all of these issues. And I guess October 7 was the first real significant thing that happened whilst I was on air that involved Israel and Gaza, Hamas, and this entire issue. And so prior to that, I mean, I didn't really even have close Jewish friends. It wasn't as though I was being fed information, or I was in some way, my sister had married someone who was Jewish. So I felt, there was nothing at all that connected me or linked me to anyone in Israel or to anyone Jewish. What connected me and linked me was the so very obvious targeting by extremist terrorists who had shown me evil in a way I did not think had existed prior. And it wasn't even a choice or a decision to kind of think, okay, who am I going to back here? I mean, come on.
Right.
There was no context to October 7. There was no resistance. There was no, no. Right. That was an act of pure evil, and anyone who sees it differently, I cannot fathom or understand. So for me, my job on that show, it was called Erin, was to give my opinion and to give it bluntly and honestly and without apology nor fear. And that's exactly what I did. And the first time I did it, the backlash was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And I'd experienced a lot of backlash over my career purely for being a woman hosting male sport. So I helped push for these laws that protected people online because of how badly I was attacked. I had no idea what was coming, So what I'm saying is, I'm not soft. I am battle hardened. I am a tough person, but this was intense. And what I did, I had to give my child to her father because of all the death threats that were coming in. It was terrifying. It was brutal. It was very difficult as a mother to know that I had put myself and my child in a position that was dangerous. But what I did, knowing that the fight that I just started to engage in mattered as much for her as it did for anyone else. I went on the next week, I did a weekly show, and I went even harder, and I think that was when I made the decision that these people are not going to, intimidate me. And if I don't fight now, and if I don't fight even harder every week and consistently absorb information, challenge myself, look at other perspectives, which I do daily, and I still at the end of every day come to the exact same conclusion that I am so staunchly on the right side of history, that there is no doubt in my mind that I am standing with the good versus the evil, and that this fight is as much for my daughter selfishly and her future and the world I want her to grow up in, as much as it is for every child in Israel, every child born into Gaza who is born into a death sentence because of Hamas. My fight is for all of them, but as much for my child as anyone else.
Yeah, and as a single mom myself, I completely understand your feelings about this, and it's incredible because I think, as a mom, especially as a single mom, we're always very protective of our kids, and to do something like that, to know that you're going to get those threats, and you went on and spoke even harder about this, just because that we need to make a better place for our kids. That's incredible. Yeah. That's very courageous, I think.
Oh, and I appreciate that very much. And I think, my number one job is protecting my child. It's what matters to me more than anything else in the world. And I'm also dealing with her father, who has every right to be deeply concerned with the situation that involves his child. There are so many things at play, but I'm also very blessed that I had so much support from people close to me and around me. And I would not do anything, pick your heart is how I describe it when I look at the situation with my little girl. And yes, there are things I now have to do differently and things in place that might make life a little bit harder for us now, but pick your heart. If I don't talk now and I pull back and say I don't need security or different things and life's a little bit easier, in 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, what does the world look like if people like me don't speak out? I would much rather it be a little bit hard now than it be a hell of a lot harder down the track. So I genuinely believe, and it might be misplaced, but I don't think it is, that what I'm doing now is for her safety and for her future and for her peace and happiness, despite the fact that in the short term that might be impacted a little bit.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that if we
Mm,
don't change things now, in a few years, it's not going to be like this. It's going to be 100 times worse. And our
absolutely.
children don't deserve to go through that.
No, I agree entirely.
So we have to
Thank you for
fight
all
for it
you're
now.
doing as a single mom. That's incredible. What you're doing
Yeah.
here is so important. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's important. I think my daughter, her father is not very involved, so she's growing up Jewish in a place that is, mixed up, but it's mostly non-Jews.
Yeah.
And my family is in Israel, so it's, it's not an easy kind of environment, or like growing up and knowing all those things. But she's very brave also, and she's very, very proud of her Judaism and her
That's
Israeli
amazing.
heritage. So it's great. I mean, I love that she's very vocal about this too. So
That's incredible. You should be so proud. How old is she?
she's 10.
Oh, bless. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm yet to get to that age. I still think, my daughter's been to a few things with me, and people will often in the streets come up and say to her, "Your mummy is amazing and she's so
Oh.
brave." And I think, at the moment she just thinks, "Oh gosh, could you stop distracting my mummy from giving me attention, please?" She doesn't quite understand, I don't think yet, but I hope down the track when she's a little bit older, she might look back and she might be a little bit proud of what I was fighting for.
Oh,
I
I'm
hope.
sure she will. How old is she
Yeah.
now?
She's 6.
Oh, that's a great age. Yeah.
It's so fun. I used to think it was very dicky when people would say to me, "Oh, my little best friend," talking about their kids, and I'd be like, "Okay, that's a bit
But
weird."
it
Now I'm in
is.
it.
Yeah.
We watch Real Housewives together, which is probably not child and age appropriate. And she's like, "Mummy, whose side are you on?" And she's such good company. And she is my little best friend. I'm very blessed.
Yeah, I love it too. Like my daughter and I, we do everything together. We watch TV
Yeah.
together. We talk. My daughter, she's very mature. She loves to have like
Yes.
real life conversations.
Oh, I
And I
love
love
that.
that. Yeah, because she's been
Me
surrounded by
too.
adults mostly, and it's just
Yes.
amazing. So
I
she
feel
really
like the same
understands
as
like
with
everything.
kids who are like single kids as well, like single parent kids, and also
Yes.
kids from one child families. I feel like even like, last year, at the end of last year, when I lost every job that I had, right? So I started the year with 4 really high profile, amazing jobs. And even like going to pick her up from school and saying, "Hey, honey, well, Mummy got sacked today, but it's okay," and then she's, "Oh, okay." And then we go home, and then she's like, "What about Sky?" Because this is when I lost the radio job. And I said, "Oh, Sky will never sack Mummy. Mummy's amazing on Sky. We'll be fine." And then, a month later, I'm like, "Hey, darling,
Oh.
Mummy," and I explained to her, and I'm actually really honest with her about stuff, like stuff that's hard or stuff that's in a child appropriate way. And
Yeah.
she's amazing, like her insight into it, or her, she actually is a lot more mature than I would have ever thought a 6-year-old could be. And we're like a little team, she's incredible.
That's
And she does
amazing.
sometimes, because her dad still takes the mickey out of me sometimes. And, "You don't have a job, Mummy." I'm like, "No, Mummy does have a job, darling. It just looks different these days, but she does
Oh
have a
yeah.
job."
Yeah,
Yeah.
my daughter's dad and I had an argument the other day because unfortunately, he's not Jewish, and he's very much on the other side.
Oh, that's
And
hard.
yeah, and so we had an argument, and she was upset, and I told her, "You see, that's why we don't live together, because if we did,
Yeah.
that's what
It would
it
be.
would have been like."
That's why I don't like where people say, and I know we're going a little bit off topic, but the whole broken home thing. I'm very lucky in that my daughter's dad is an amazing dad. We co-parent her beautifully. I'm so blessed. Like, he loves her so much. Our homes, our one home, but 2 separate houses, is the most full, wholesome, loving home in the world. What we had together was a broken home.
Yes.
What we now have is not a broken home. It's the complete opposite. So I get really defensive with that. I think the greatest gift you can give your child, whether it's with their father or not, is a safe, happy, peaceful home. And it's not always easy, but
Right.
that's the goal, right? That's the
Right.
key.
As long as they're taken care of and they're loved,
Exactly.
they have everything they need. That's what
That's
matters,
it. We're doing our jobs, Mama. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So back on topic, why do you think there's so much anti-Semitism in Australia, particularly around the world? Why are there so many anti-Semitic incidents going on? I know the ADL released a report a couple of days ago saying that the anti-Semitic incidents in the U.S. particularly, but everywhere else, I think there's a rise of 4,000 something incidents in 2024. That's a lot.
It
And
is.
Yeah, and what do you see in Australia?
Oh, it's extraordinary. And look, I would preface anything I say with my genuine belief, which is the vast majority of Australians are not anti-Semitic in that way at all. I think it's like anything else. You know, when I was a sports host, I would host car racing, and for the 6 p.m. news each night, I'd have a minute 20 to fit in a 9-hour car race.
Mm.
And the only 3 things I could include were the car crashes, because they were the most spectacle, the ones that would get most eyes watching, et cetera, et cetera. So the kind of 30 cars that were perfect and going around didn't get a look in, because my job in that newsroom was to provide the most exciting part for 1 minute 20. And I feel like that's what gets shown around the world when it comes to Australia. There is absolutely a serious issue here when it comes to that. And there are a group of people who are malicious, whose beliefs do not align with what Australia stands for as a country. They make a lot of noise and they get a lot of coverage. And I'm not trying to lessen the problem by saying I think the vast majority of Australians disagree with them. That's my genuine belief. They are a serious problem. And the Jewish community here in Australia, of which I'm now, I know a lot of them. You know, I now have a lot of Jewish friends, which is incredible. And I interact with them a lot. And you know, what they've been through over the last year and a half has been horrific in terms of the way this country has treated them in many ways, the way the government has made them feel, the way individuals have targeted them, have attacked them. It's just been horrific. I don't, you know, I think propaganda is a huge issue. I think there's a group that are anti-Semitic to their core, who have always felt this way. You write them off. You don't want them. You don't need them. They're scum. There's also, though, there's a group of useful idiots, and some who are not so idiotic but have fallen victim to this propaganda machine that is incredibly sophisticated, incredibly. I mean, I look at it and go, oh, my God, that's so obviously ridiculous. But people I know who are smart, who are genuine, who are fairly decent people, I thought, buy into it and believe it and allow it to shape their beliefs, despite the fact that I know that they would consider themselves moral, upstanding citizens. So I think the propaganda machine that is so sophisticated, that has been in place well before October 7, there is so much preparation that has gone into this, I think is a massive issue. I think leadership, I think, you know, you look at the Sydney Opera House and you look at what happened the day after October 7, when people were still being killed before an IDF boot had hit the ground in Gaza, and we had people celebrating the atrocities outside our opera house being beamed around the world. And that was a moment for our country, for our Prime Minister in particular, to come out and say, we do not accept that on any level. That is not who Australia is. That is not what we stand for. And not only to say it, because it's easy to say something you think you should say because it ticks a box, but to then hold people to account. And I'm not talking about stopping free speech. You can free speech out your hoo-ha for as long as you want. It doesn't matter. Hate speech is not free speech, and inciting violence against a community is not free speech. Both those things occurred on camera, and not one person was punished, was put, you know, and this is where you've got all the others who are kind of a little bit cowardly, waiting in the bushes, watching. What's the reaction? Had you held people to account for that, we wouldn't have seen 90% of the rubbish that we've seen since. Right. But because they went, wait a minute, did they pay a price? No. Was anyone held to account? No. Was anyone charged? No. They went, okay, free for all, let's go. So it was a moment for us to set a tone and to set a standard in this country, and we failed abysmally in that regard. So I think there's lots of contributing factors, but they all come together and you know, create just an environment that is the first time in my life I felt deeply ashamed of my country, and I'm the most, you know, such a proud Australian. My father was in the military, was an incredible human being, defended this nation many, many times, and for me to feel shame is a big deal, and I did.
Yeah, it's been going on around the world, and you see videos of police officers just standing there,
or
not doing anything.
They told, so the Jewish people in Australia wanted to go to the Opera House that night and remember and mourn the loss of October 7. They were told to stay away because this other mob was coming out. Can you believe it? Police told the Jewish population who wanted to gather and mourn not to come because it might be dangerous for them, rather than protecting them and their right to mourn.
Right.
rather than allowing terrorists to celebrate and to promote and to engage in the most disgraceful display I've seen in front of an Australian national monument. It was abhorrent.
It's insane. And I think, and I've been saying it, throughout our different episodes, the podcast, the Hamas particularly, they have the best PR in the world. They always have that. This is nothing new. They do have cracks here and there that you notice things that, for example, they use a picture of a dead girl. They say, oh, that's from Gaza now. And it's a Syrian girl from like 12 years ago. Like they do that a lot.
But then, that happens. And where is CNN covering it? The BBC, Sky, like this is the issue with even when cracks appear and they are so obvious. And all it takes is one incident like that, and it should be blasted everywhere. So people, you're not saying join our side or don't, but what it does is people go, oh, wait a minute. But the issue is those on the left and vast majority of the mainstream media don't reveal those cracks that appear, that the inconsistencies, the hypocrisies, the fake images that are blasted out. They blast out the fake image, and then when it's proven to be fake, nothing, silence, crickets, and it's so dangerous. The whole thing is so dangerous.
Yeah, they would, a lot of times the news, all those news channels, like the big ones that are supposed to be reliable, they would broadcast this thing, oh, Israel did this, Israel did that, this is a giant, or like the big numbers of people, children and women.
I haven't seen them broadcast the updates that Hamas themselves did to the
exactly, so they would tweet. Yeah, they would tweet a little tweet, maybe like, "Oh, sorry, this was inaccurate." Yeah, and that's it.
Well, the
they
hospital
would never speak about it anymore.
The hospital was front page everywhere, and then the moment they found out it was actually a bomb from within Gaza, a missile that had dropped in the car park, silence. Or maybe you're right, a footnote, or just a little clarification.
Yeah, they always do like a little thing
after the weather. Yeah. Oh, and just like the doctor, thank you. So it's just they are meant to be news programs. I'm an opinion host. I'm a commentator. I give my opinion. That is what I do. If I was hosting a news program, if I was on the CNN News, BBC News, whatever it is, NBC, MSNBC, your job is to report the facts, not to slant it in some certain way, not to become biased, not to try and get people to see your perspective or your narrative. Yet they do the complete opposite, and it's shameful.
Yeah, I mean, BBC is like the best example of that.
Oh,
they
are. The UK,
they're biased beyond bias. I mean, it's not, I mean, for all I know, Hamas runs their channel.
all your listeners, your watchers, there's a better BBC, and it's my channel, Bat Beep Crazy. So if you don't like that BBC, come to my BBC. It's way better. Bat Beep Crazy. So
we'll talk about that too.
Yes.
We'll talk about that so you can tell people where to find it and everything.
Lovely.
So we talked about Sky News earlier. After you parted ways, do you feel like, so first of all, what did you take from that experience? And do you feel like anything good came out of it eventually?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's one of the, I think for 20 years in the media, I'd never lost a job. And that's a fairly good run for someone in an industry that's not renowned for being particularly stable. But I think for that nearly 20 years, I'd lived, I had moments of joy, but the vast majority of my time was in this constant state of fear of failing, fear of losing jobs, fear of being humiliated publicly, fear of this, fear of that. And it was that, I woke up every morning and the first thing I worried about was, am I going to get sacked today? And it was an obsession almost. And I didn't quite understand it until last year when I lost everything. I didn't understand how much it impacted me, this fear. Mm-hmm. And then when I lost every job, basically, I suddenly was, faced with, this is what I've feared forever. And, for an hour or two, I was bloody, terrified and sobbing and shocked. And, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm a single mom. I've got a mortgage. I thought, I blah, blah, blah. But then I reckon it was a couple of hours later that I actually just went, wait a minute, this is what you feared forever. You're okay. You still have worth and value. What people think does not matter. It doesn't matter. Your stuff, and I started to think, okay, Sky, my stuff was going viral every week. Millions of people were watching. What did Sky provide me with? And I was thinking, okay, studio, great. A time slot, amazing. I wrote every single monologue that I did. That's all me. I don't have a team of writers or anyone. Every single thing that I wrote was either that I said was off the cuff or I'd written a monologue myself. And so I went, I don't need them. You know, they've made a decision. It's a business decision. You know, I've had a great run in mainstream media and traditional television for 20 years. This was always going to happen at some point. I actually felt more confident in my value and worth, and I should have probably had zero and felt completely insecure and worthless. But for some reason, I just felt the complete opposite. And after a couple of hours, I just went, okay, now what? And then I started to fight back, and I started to look into how I could do this without them and what I needed. And all these people were reaching out and offering to support me and help me and with suggestions. And, you know, some of the bloody people around the world, famous people, were calling my phone and sending me messages David Schumer and Amy Schumer and all these, Deborah Messing. And I'm going, oh my Lord, this is crazy. Just to you know, and it just proved to me that my stuff had worth and that I had worth. And so to be honest, it was the best thing that could ever happen to me, because it made me realize that I was still a person of worth without being on television and without being all these things that I used to think was the only reason people liked me or that I mattered or people wanted to be my friend. Or I realized, actually, no, it's who you are as a person, and you don't need them for that. So in a kind of more personal way, it's the greatest gift, because now I live in this space which is crazy and chaotic, and I work probably harder than I've ever worked in my life, but I'm in complete control of every single thing that I do. And I'm not worried about, if I say this on Sky, my breakfast radio show might be upset because, you know, they don't want it to be controversial, even though how the hell is it controversial condemning terrorism? But apparently it is these days. And
who knows?
It's crazy. So to be honest, I look back now and I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I got there. And I love doing that show. But now I'm doing exactly that show, but tenfold, and the X show, which, you know, millions watch each week. And my life has changed so dramatically, but in the best possible way. So I feel very grateful. Doesn't mean I agree with their decision.
Right.
I think that I was amazing, but that's their right to make that decision, and I'm all the better for it.
But hey, look, now everything is yours 100%.
It is 100%.
And 100%.
I can wear what I want. I can say, you know, it just, all these, I've been controlled for 20 years in terms of my image and what I can say and the language I can use and my perspective. You know, you kind of get to the stage, I'm 41 now, where you just go, okay, you know what, I'm done with playing a role and you know, and having to be accepted by the largest group of people possible from a ratings perspective. Therefore, I've got to appeal to the largest group of possible. So I can't actually be strong or hard on anything. I've just got to kind of stay in the middle there and not piss people off. And that's not me, clearly, as you would know now. That is the opposite of who I am. And I did that for many, many years because that was my job. But now, you know, this is the most authentic me that exists, and it's very liberating.
That's amazing. Well, I'm glad to see that you're doing all this stuff, because I know, I mean, I followed you on social media and I see all the stuff that you do, and it's incredible. So I'm glad that you got that chance to do all of that and be yourself 100%. So that's great.
So I guess the lesson out of this for anyone watching who's maybe a little bit younger than we are is that life will annihilate you at times, as most people watching and listening this would know. But sometimes the greatest gifts can feel awful and horrendous at the time, whether that's relationships, work, things that happen in your life. You know, the hardest thing in my life has turned into the greatest. So it's nice.
So don't be scared. Go for it.
That's right.
Whatever you got to do, go for it.
Back yourself. Go for it. Absolutely.
I got to tell it to myself sometimes too, but you know.
No, believe me, daily, I still sometimes go, what if, yeah. So look, I think we're all a work in progress, but I think, you know, just continually work on yourself, which I never would have said 5 years ago, but I'm now very into all that stuff, and it's life-changing.
Oh, well, that's good. So you visited Israel for the first time, right? Recently.
I did,
yeah.
So I've been twice now. So, look, I went for the first time in December. It was look, I'm yet to go as a tourist. I'm yet to kind of go and experience Israel, the bright, happy, amazing side, which is everywhere. The first trip, all I wanted to do was go to the Nova Music Festival site, the kibbutz, the places that October 7 that were attacked. I went to the Knesset and I watched all the raw vision, every second of it. Met with lots of different people, spoke to so many different people who were impacted. So it was a very traumatic trip, to be honest, but also the most inspiring, incredible. I the juxtaposition of death, hurt, pain, trauma, watching the faces of this evil who enjoyed sadistically every life they took in the most painful way, including children, but then going to visit the kibbutz and meeting a 40-year-old architect from New York who didn't know anyone in the kibbutz, but has come over for 6 months, left a high-paying job just to help rebuild. A woman in the garden of another kibbutz who's doing the flowers, and I walk over and I shake her hand and I say, "Oh, is this your place?" She goes, "Oh, no. I'm just looking after the garden. They were taken into Gaza." And I said, "Oh, is it your mum?" She said, "Oh, no, I don't actually know them, but I just want the garden to look nice when they come home." And, the resilience, the love, the hope, the lack of, and I'm sure that hate, because how could it not exist when people have done what they have done to you? But I never see it. All I see is love and hope and this, desire to bring their people home, as opposed to wanting revenge or any other kind of thing that I would expect from a community who had been through that. So Israel was incredible. One image that stays in my mind was going to the Western Wall and watching two IDF soldiers in uniform kind of walking past. One of them, they stopped outside the mosque, and one of them took his shoes off, put them down, walked into the mosque, obviously a Muslim IDF soldier, and prayed, walked back out. The other soldier was wearing a kippah, obviously a Jewish soldier. The Muslim man put his hand on the Jewish man's shoulder to put his shoes back on. The other guy helped him, handed him his shoe. Then they walked off together and chatting. And I just went, that is Israel. That is Israel. It is not an apartheid state. It is the complete opposite. And people just have absolutely no idea.
They don't. And they refuse to learn. They refuse to, they should go and see. They should experience it for themselves. Even when it's hard,
I think getting for an awards ceremony, a bravery award that the government gave
so
me.
what was that like for you? And what
was
incredible.
The award about? It was incredible. Douglas Murray had received the first one the year before. It was kind of people who fight global anti-Semitism and stand up on behalf of.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's incredible, isn't he? So that was an amazing honor. So look, it's a beautiful place. I'm going again next week. Which would be amazing. Yeah. So I'm I do very quick trips just as a single mom. I'm on the ground for 1 or 2 nights. So I spend more time in an airplane than I do on the ground. But, my priority is to get back to my little girl as quickly as possible. But it's amazing because I still get to go and do these really powerful, incredible things and then come home.
Well, hopefully things get better so you can take her also and go on an actual trip.
I'd love to.
My daughter loves it. We go every other year. I wish I could go more, but she loves it. She just loves it there.
It's such an incredible place. Just, I need to go to a bar in Tel Aviv. I still have not done that. I'll find time at some stage.
Yeah, go to the bar, go to the beach, go to there's so many beautiful places, so many great places for kids too. So
I'd love that. One day soon, hopefully.
Yes, I hope so for you too. So what can you tell us about the shows that you launched? You have a new show, 69 X Minutes, and you have the podcast that you're doing. What can you tell us about?
Yes, so I do a YouTube. I don't actually do a podcast at this stage. So I do. So it's the YouTube channel, which is Erin_Molan. And I think we've got 55,000 subscribers now, which is amazing. And just anything and everything I do on that. It's very similar to what my show was. I interviewed Boris Johnson last night. I do my monologues. I do a lot on US politics as well, war in Europe, Middle East, the rising threat of China, basically anything and everything. The 69X Minutes show, I hate the name, But it's a very serious news show that Elon Musk came up with that name. And after Kamala Harris had done an interview on 60 Minutes, and they'd released the tapes and shown how they'd attempted to edit it to make her look semi-competent. They still failed miserably, by the way, in the edited version. But he then said, if someone wants to come up with a 69 minutes, show for X, blah, 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 and a big media company did that. I now host that, which is incredible. We've had 9 world leaders on over the last 9 weeks. It's a very serious news show, and it's incredible. There's no bias. It's just, people telling their story, and we've had some incredible guests. I've been able to platform so many incredible people out of Israel and from the Jewish community, and so many people able to give them this massive audience, which I care deeply about. I think that matters a lot. And then lots of travel and lots of speaking events. I've been to Canada. I did a 3 speaking tour of Canada, which was incredible. Israel as well. The US, I'm going back to the US I think 3 times actually before the end of the year to go and speak to people and to tell my story and to give my insights and analysis, and at big conferences and forums, which I just love. So life it's very busy, but it's very full. And as much as I loved talking about men's groins at 11 p.m. on a Friday night during a football match,
oh my God,
this existence is somewhat more fulfilling for me. So I feel like I'm in this just beautiful, brilliant place. I wish I wasn't needed. I wish October 7 had not happened. I wish the world had reacted differently, but this is the reality. And as long as I feel like I'm useful in this space and I feel like I'm making ground, which I do, then I will continue to contribute as much as I can.
Yes, and you're doing a fantastic job from what I've seen. So that's great.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I have one last question, and then I have a little segment. So as a mother, and we talked about this a little bit before, what kind of world do you hope your daughter and her generation will grow up to?
I hope it's a world that understands what is right from what is wrong, because I don't think we can ever hope for a world that doesn't have evil in it. I think that's impossible, as much as I would love that. But I think what matters more is the side that the vast majority are on. And that is where my fears lie at the moment, that may be shifting. So what I hope for is a world that understands good from evil, right from wrong, and fights with every ounce of its being to protect that and to create the spaces that we can protect for those who want to live in peace and who want democracy and who want freedom and who want hope. That's what I hope.
Amen to that. I hope so too. I hope that the girls' generation is not going to have to go through what we've been through and what the current generation is going through. Hopefully it's a lot better for them.
Entirely. You can't continue this traumatic cycle, not for anyone. Yeah.
All right. So the last thing is my little segment called Favorite Israeli Thing. And since you had a visit in Israel already, you should know some of these things. Who is your favorite Israeli political figure, present or past?
Oh, that's so controversial.
I know.
Oh. Okay, well, look, I think I have to say Amichai Chikli, just because he gave me the award. So I feel like I feel like I have to say him at this moment. But like Golda, there's been so many incredible ones, but I think I'll stick with him just because he gave me an award. So if any other political figures current would like me to mention them in our next podcast, all you have to do is give me a trophy.
Give us some trophies.
That's it. I think that's the least controversial answer I can give you.
Good. You kept it nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Who is your favorite Israeli collaborator? Because I know you got to work with some Israelis.
Oh, that's a real, oh gosh. Okay. So, do you know what? So Cheryl on X, I want to give you her right name because I love her. What Cheryl wrote.
Okay.
So she's an account on X that is just incredible. Like, she's brave. Her husband's in the IDF. So Cheryl wrote it is the exact name, Cheryl E. So she's amazing. Okay. Montana Tucker does incredible stuff. She's just done this incredible video. There's so, I feel awful now because there's so many who are so amazing and so passionate and do so many incredible things. But Cheryl's the first person who started to share my stuff on X and started to kind of propel it to a bigger audience. So I feel like she has to be my number one at this stage.
All right. So shout out to Cheryl.
Yes. So Cheryl Wrote It is her name on X. She's wonderful. You should follow her.
Yeah, I'll find her. We'll find her. So I know you didn't have a lot of time to visit in Israel as a tourist, but what was your favorite place that you got to see?
Oh, another great question. Look, I think maybe the kibbutz, just meeting people in those areas, whilst it was so tragic and traumatic, I got to see the real spirit and strength of people that should be broken in a corner in the fetal position because of what they've gone through, but they are the complete opposite. So I think seeing that real, genuine Jewish Israeli existence in that traditional space was really, really powerful and life-changing in many ways for me. The other place, the Western Wall, I went and I had my little notepad, and this is in December. I think it was like 2 weeks after I'd been sacked, that I was in Israel. It was just, coincidence, the timing. And I was writing, my letter to God about all the things. And gosh, there was a lot of things that I could have asked for at that stage. As I went to write, this overwhelming sense of gratitude came over me, and I just wrote, thank you. And that, for some reason, I don't know what it was, but I just felt so much gratitude. I mean, now I wish I'd written $10 million.
Yeah, right.
A 6'6" man. A big job. But no, so I think that to me was very special as well.
Yeah, I remember as kids when we used to go to Jerusalem, like a school trip or something, and they told us we're going to the Western Wall. You should write notes. So as kids, you write, I want to get this doll. I want my mommy to buy me this and that. So it's very different as adults.
Yeah, it's very different, isn't it? But no, that was really special. Jerusalem's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a very special place, and it makes you feel it's a powerful place.
It is
just to go there. Yeah,
it's lovely.
What was your favorite Israeli food that you got to eat?
Oh, I don't even think I got to try any real traditional food.
What?
I was mainly just in the hotels. So look, I did though in Noosa in Australia last week in Queensland have the most incredible falafel.
Okay.
Amazing. So that was in Noosa, Queensland, but it was inspired by, but I need to get there more and actually get out and enjoy, which I promise to do.
Yeah, next time when you go as a tourist with your daughter, you got to explore. You got to go around. I can give you the best shawarma place. That's it's just good.
I'd love that. That would be amazing.
Yes. All right. And lastly, what was your most memorable interaction with an Israeli while you were there?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me this. I'm going to get something, okay?
Okay.
Hold up. Okay, so when I was there in December, so on the first trip, I was doing a talk to like 1,000 lawyers or something, and they were all kind of filing in, and I was taking photos, etc., and then was going to go in and speak up on stage. And this man kind of ran right at the end up to me, and he said, "Oh, I couldn't get a ticket. They were all gone, but I just drove 2.5 hours. I have to give you something." And he gave me this, and it's dirty. It's wear and tear. It's the Israeli flag that was on his IDF uniform on October 7.
Wow.
When he was called into battle. And he said, "I just want you to know the impact that your videos had on us when we were in Gaza." He said, going to war was terrifying and tough and all these things. But he said, when we realized suddenly that the world thought we were the bad people as opposed to fighting this evil, he said it was so hard. And he said, "My mum sent me a link to one of your videos a little while after we'd arrived." And he said, "Everyone gathered around, and it's the first time we didn't feel alone. It's the first time we felt that people believed in what we were doing." And he said, then for the next weeks and years after that, he said, weekly we would all gather and watch your monologue. And it just, as a daughter of a major general and someone who went to war, was in Iraq fighting the same Islamic extremism, but in different forms, to think that in some way I made their life a little bit easier, people who were there defending what I value and my way of life and my freedoms, even though I'm far away, was the most special thing. And I carry it everywhere with me in my
Oh,
handbag.
that's
Never
amazing.
leave. So that's my most
Oh, it's so
special.
beautiful. I'm glad I asked you that question. That's
Yes, me
beautiful.
too. Me too.
Oh, it must have been such an emotional
Oh, I
interaction with
cried.
him.
Yeah, I cried.
Oh,
Yeah, very much.
that's
It was beautiful.
amazing. All right. Well, Erin, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I'm glad we made it happen.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm just really excited to be here and to share with you. And thank you for all the incredible work that you are doing.
And thank you for everything you're doing. And whenever you come to the US, if you're around Maryland, please let me know.
I will absolutely. I can't wait to meet you in person. Bye, my darling.
You.